And I will tell you right now, I will not raise my children to think Donald Trump is an acceptable American leader. Nor that he is what the leader of our great country should behave like. Yes. I won't raise them to think his terror enables his power and that his greed equals success. He is the exact opposite of what real strength looks like.
They're just incredible role models, and their values are American values, and we need to revive those and provide hope to everybody.
We heard from the governor, but we haven't heard from you yet about this investigation. What do you want to say?
I'm just so grateful for this inspiration and leadership. We need more of this.
Hey, this is stuff that happens in other countries. That's all I'll say. Happens in other countries. Who wants to go after me, go after me.
It's nice to see both of you. Madam First Lady, it's great to see you. Thank you, Governor. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Katie, I mean, when you look around, everybody is down here.
What's up, family? So we got an interesting conversation I want to have with you guys. And I'm telling you right now, and this is the type of story that exposes everything wrong with the political class in this country. Because you got Gavin Newsom and his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, out here crying victim, running into the Victim Olympics, as I like to call it, claiming the Trump administration is targeting them with this Department of Justice investigation, calling it a fishing expedition, a political hit job, all that good stuff. But here's the problem with that narrative, and I mean the big problem. When you actually look at the facts, the investigation they're crying about started under the Biden administration. Ain't that sound funny or hilarious, ironically? They're crying about something that started under the Biden administration back in 2022, not 2025. Not when Trump got back in, but 2022 under Joe Biden's Department of Justice. And that completely and totally destroys everything they're trying to sell you. Like, completely. Now, let me break this down because this is where it gets really interesting. And this is where the hypocrisy becomes so loud, you can't ignore it. So you got Jennifer Siebel Newsom sitting down with MSNBC, now known as MS Now, host Stephanie Ruhle for what's supposed to be her big interview to control the narrative about this Department of Justice investigation. And right away, she's calling it a fishing expedition, claiming Trump is going after her husband because he's a political enemy, all the typical talking points you expect from someone trying to play the victim card. But here's where it gets good, family. Stephanie Ruhle hits her with a question she was not prepared for. She asked Jennifer if the investigation really started during the Biden administration, and you can see it in her face. She was blindsided and she started stammering. She went into this word solid, incoherent response talking about, well, Trump was attacking Gavin back when Biden was president too. And it just shows you how desperate they are to make everything about Trump, even when the facts don't back it up. Think about this for a second. The Biden Department of Justice started investigating people in Newsom's orbit as early as 2022. His former chief of staff already pleaded guilty to fraud and other charges back in May. So how exactly is that a Trump fishing expedition when Democrats were the ones who opened the investigation? That's the part that doesn't add up. And it's the part they don't want you to think about too hard, because once you do the whole victim narrative and you realize the facts, it falls apart. Now, let's talk about the real money here, because this is where my accounting background comes in, and this is where things really get interesting, because the Daily Mail's investigative reporter Josh Boswell broke down the numbers on Jennifer Newsom's charity, the Representation Project, and what he found should make every single American raise an eyebrow. Since 2012, she has paid herself $3.7 million from this charity that claims to fight gender stereotypes and empower women and girls. Now, look at the math here. The charity brings in about $1 to $1.7 million a year, and she's paying up to a third of that to herself and her own company, about $300,000 a year. And when they compared her compensation to charities of similar size, she was in the top 5% of all charities in the nation for executive pay. Let that sink in for a second. She's in the top 5% of charity executives getting paid off of a charity that's supposed to be about helping women and girls and communities, but a third of the money that comes in goes right back to her pocket. And here's the really the funny part. Not exactly funny, or not actually funny, but sarcastically. These are the same people who love to demonize billionaires and rich people, talking about income inequality and how the wealthy need to pay their fair share, but when it comes to their own pockets, suddenly $300,000 a year from a charity she runs for herself is perfectly fine. Laughable. You can't make this stuff up. The grift is beautiful to watch when you actually pay attention, because they're not against the rich. They're against you being rich while they enrich themselves with your tax dollars and corporate donations, basically.
On Monday, California Governor Gavin Newsom declared himself and his wife to be victims of President Trump and the Justice Department.
To get me, he's coming after my wife, Jen, a public servant, a woman who's dedicated her life to supporting women and girls.
So without saying what was being investigated, Newsom also failed to mention a key detail, that the Biden DOJ began investigating people in his orbit as early as 2022, 4 years ago, including his former chief of staff, who ultimately pled guilty to fraud and other charges in May. Back in March, the Daily Mail ran a story claiming that Governor Newsom's wife and her firm pocketed more than $3 million from a gender stereotypes charity. For more on this, we're joined by the Daily Mail's chief investigative reporter, Josh Boswell. Josh, great to see you. So what made you look into Newsom's wife in the first place, and what did you find?
Well, there are just always a lot of questions that seem to be swirling around the Newsoms and their finances, have been for years. And so I thought, this is a man who clearly is going to be running for president. This is worth looking at, what their finances are, what the shape of them are. And so when I had a look at Jennifer Newsom's charity, I found that she was paying herself since 2012 $3.7 million. This is a lot of money when you look at the amount that the charity brings in. It's sort of 1 to 1.7 million a year. And she's paying up to a third of that to herself and her own company, $300,000 a year. Now, that is, I did a bit of data analysis looking at what charities that size usually pay their executives. And she was in the top 5% of all charities in the nation for pay.
So DOJ, of course, doesn't comment on the specifics of this. We've really only heard from Gavin Newsom claiming this investigation is targeting them, even though, as we mentioned, it started in 2022 in his orbit. Do you think that the charity is the reason DOJ might be investigating her?
There's a whole bunch of reasons, potentially. There are a lot of questions around their finances. So the charity could be one of them. Now, it is legal for a charity to pay whatever they want to their executives. But one of the issues they might be looking at is, who are the donors to the charity that are financing that pay? What kind of relationships do they have with the California government that Newsom is in charge of? There's also, if you look at his income, and he's released at least, partly to journalists in closed door viewing sessions, his tax returns. And if you look at that, his income, it's about 1.2 to 1.4 million a year. And it just doesn't add up for all of his expenses. He's got massive mortgages, $625,000 in mortgage payments. He's got at least $1 million in living expenses. And the two just don't add up. I would be interested in that if I were an IRS investigator. One other thing to look at here is the way that his property transactions are structured lead to a lot of questions. When he bought his $3.7 million Sacramento estate, it was done through an LLC, but that LLC doesn't seem to have appeared on his tax returns. There's all kind of questions of why he would do it that way, and he hasn't answered those satisfactorily. So if I'm IRS, I'm looking at that too, thinking maybe there's an issue here. We've yet to see what the actual details are.
Enemies. Joining me now for her first interview about this investigation is Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Jennifer, I'm so glad you're here. This is an ordeal. Do you have any more information about what exactly the Justice Department is claiming to be looking for?
No, this is a fishing expedition. I mean, this is typical Trump fashion. Go after your enemies. And so you'd have to ask the DOJ. But the irony is that this all happened as I was premiering my latest documentary, Misrepresentation Rise Up, which looks at the myriad ways the patriarchy, conservatives harass, threaten, intimidate, and try to silence women who speak truth to power. And the irony of all ironies is that life in this instance is imitating art, and it's here in front of us under Trump's leadership.
Is it having an impact on your work? Because the investigation is allegedly looking into your nonprofit that focuses on gender equity. How is this impacting you in your business, essentially?
Look, I've written, directed, and produced 5 documentaries that expose harmful gender stereotypes and norms and the benefits to society when we value women, when we value the feminine, when we help men lean into care at home. And I will keep doing this work. I am very proud of the work that I do. We're making an impact in the world. The world is better off when women are supported. Children are better off when women's wealth, health, and safety are addressed. Our communities are healthier, and our economy thrives.
The Trump administration has been using the Department of Justice, it's no surprise, to launch investigations and prosecutions of people that the president sees as his political opponents. But is it true that this investigation started during the Biden administration?
I don't know the details. I do know that, Trump was coming after my husband back when Biden was president and Biden was running for the presidency, and I thought it was ironic. So, look, this is a fishing expedition, and I think what you're saying is that it's just been going on for a long time. My husband is Trump's most outspoken critic, and he's the GOP's biggest I don't know. They've always targeted my husband, and whether it's the GOP themselves or, their media empire with Rupert Murdoch and the like, we're just, kind of sitting ducks in that regard because they think that my husband's aspiring for the presidency and they want to silence him, and therefore they go after his wife and those close to him.
Is he aspiring for the presidency?
I believe right now we are focused on California. We've built a foundation. I've been focused on women and children and communities. I'm really proud of the work we're doing to close the women's wealth gap, the women's wage gap, to get women on public company boards. I'm really proud of the work we're doing with our CalKid and CalSavers accounts, before Trump accounts, and the financial literacy that's being mandated in all high schools. I'm just, we're trying to set California up for success. We are the 4th largest economy under my husband's leadership. California GDP has surged 40%, higher than Germany and China's, faster than the U.S.'s GDP growth. It's really exciting to be in California. Diversity is our secret sauce. It's what my husband and I stand for and represent and champion. And so I guess in that regard, we're a threat to the GOP. But right now we're focused on California, and we're focused on saving our democracy because clearly we have an unhinged leader who is coming at his political enemies and trying to intimidate us all, sow fear, distrust, and chaos. And we have to right this ship, not just in our country, but for the world. The world is looking at us going, what is going on in America right now, or in the United States of America right now? And they're extremely concerned.
But it gets even deeper than that, family, because now you got to look at Gavin Newsom's finances, how they don't add up. According to the reporting, his tax returns, as you heard, that he's shown to journalists in closed door sessions, show his income is about $1.2 to $1.4 million a year. But here's what the math breaks down. He's got $625,000 in mortgage payments alone, and at least $1 million in living expenses. So you got over $1.6 million in expenses on an income that maxes out at $1.4 million, and that's before taxes. That's before everything else. So where does the rest of the money coming from, right? When he brought his $3.7 million Sacramento estate, he did it through the LLC, but that LLC doesn't seem to be appeared on the tax returns at all. And when reporters asked him about it, he hasn't given a satisfactory answer. Now, and if I'm the IRS investigator I'm looking at it and I'm saying something doesn't add up because this is basic stuff when your expenses exceed your income year after year. But I mean, it makes sense if you look at how California is governed based on the mathematics and the math not mathing with the cost of living and everything going up either. But either you're going to debt or there's money coming from somewhere you're not reporting. And neither option looks good for a guy who wants to be a president. And let's not skip over how this woman introduces herself because she calls herself the first partner of California, not first lady, not the governor's wife, but first partner, which is inclusive language. A lot of individuals would say, and I've seen individuals on the internet saying it's LGBTQ inclusive language. I'll just say it's inclusive language. But that tells you immediately how deep into the woke culture she is, right? I'm not coming at or attacking LGBTQ people at all. You be what you want to be, and if you're comfortable within yourself, be who you want to be. But I'm speaking in the inclusive language when it comes to wokeness, as in the ignorant culture in regards of feeling entitled, running based off of emotions and not facts. As you can see when it comes to Gavin Newsom, her husband, and his finances and how California is ran. So you're using inclusive language while deceiving people and making it though things are better than what they are, and then making like you're suddenly just being attacked, running into the Victim Olympics. And I'm not here to tell you what words to use, but that is my definition of woke culture, just to add the context so we can have a genuine, sincere conversation here. I'm not for attacking nobody, but a productive conversation to actually yield solutions for all of us as American people and for all people, and continue to be on the right side of history and continue to evolve as a country, as beautiful United States of America is. What you do in your bedroom is not my business. But when you're trying to convince regular everyday Americans to trust you to run a state or eventually a country, and your wife is introducing herself with language that most people have never really resonated with or heard of in their lives, shows you how disconnected they are from the communities they claim to represent. Also, how they like to remix definition and verbiage so you can be deceived and thinking one way of what they're saying so it fits their narrative in their favor. But deep down, typical politician or political things, they'll say one thing and do another and deceive you, making something that seem as though you got to understand it on what you really don't, because they have a hidden motive, which is why they constantly keep moving the goalposts and remixing their definition in this inclusive language, right? So most folks in California are worried about the cost of gas, the price of groceries, whether their kids are learning anything in school, and whether their neighborhoods are safe. And here you got the governor's wife wanting to call herself a first partner. Okay, knock yourself out. And talking about how diversity is a secret sauce and how they're a threat to the GOP because they champion inclusion. Meanwhile, her husband is being investigated for potential financial crimes, which is the gist of it. But of course, you got to deflect and move the things on and speak in an inclusive language to tug onto the heartstrings of individuals and remix the definition to your understanding to fit your narrative, so you can take away from the actual story, the actual topic of this conversation, which is accountability when it comes to finances, especially as being a governor and a governor's wife, right? So meanwhile, her husband is being investigated for a potential financial crime that started under his own party's administration, right? Biden's administration, and her charity is paying her top 5% executive compensation while claiming to help women. The disconnect is staggering, is my whole point, right? Because the biggest moment of this interview that we just watched on her on being on MS Now, and the moment she completely fell apart, Stephanie Ruhle asked a simple, direct question that nobody in the liberal media ever wants to ask. Is he aspiring for the presidency? And when you watch what happened and you ask a politician's spouse a real question instead of a softball, Jennifer immediately dodges and starts talking about how they're focused on California right now and how they build a foundation. She's proud of the work and they're closing the women's wealth gap and setting California up for success. And then she goes into the long rambling answer about California being the fourth largest economy, and the GDP, which is the gross domestic product, which is the cost of goods and services, surging 40% higher than Germany, and China's faster than the US GDP growth, and you can see Stephanie Ruhle just looking at her and smiling. You know, she's still smiling with her black button-up outfit on now, the reporter, in the clip that's on the screen right now, or at the end of this clip. But it's like the smile is like, please stop talking. You're just rambling, word solid. Because the answer to the question is yes, Gavin Newsom is running for president in 2020. Everybody knows it. He knows it. She knows it. But she can't say it because if she admits it, then the whole story about Trump targeting him for political reasons makes it even less sense, because what politician hasn't gone after the potential future competition? But the truth is, Gavin Newsom is not a threat to the Republican Party. He's a threat to this country. He's a threat to the core values that made America work. And he's desperate right now because his approval numbers in California are tanking and people are fleeing the state in droves and businesses are leaving. And he needs something to rally the progressive base around. So what does he do? He plays the victim card and he claims Trump is targeting him, and he claims the Department of Justice is a weapon against political opponents, and he hopes his base doesn't look too closely at the actual facts. That's just the truth. But here's the thing, family, and this is where I want you to really pay attention, because this is the takeaway from all of this, and the lesson applies to your life too, not just politics. These people constantly tell us that nobody is above the law, and they say it at every rally, every speech, every interview. Nobody is above the law. But watch what happens when the law comes knocking on their door. Suddenly, as Gavin Newsom wives like to call it, a fishing expedition. Suddenly, it's a political persecution. Suddenly, it's a witch hunt. Suddenly, they're the victims. And that's the pattern that you need to recognize in every area of your life, family. People love to hold others to standards they refuse to keep themselves, and they love accountability for you, but not for them. They love consequences for your mistakes, but grace for theirs. They love transparency when it's someone else's finances, but privacy when it's theirs. And this is why you got to be careful who you follow, who you look up to, who you trust with your vote, your time, your attention, because a lot of these people are selling you a lifestyle they don't even live themselves. They tell you to be humble while they pay themselves millions, and they tell you to fight the rich while they get rich, and they tell you to trust the system while they manipulate the system. And when they get caught, they blame the system they claim to support. And before I let you go, let me leave you with something from the scriptures, because this whole situation reminds me of a passage that fits perfectly. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 28, verse 13, and it says, "Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy." Now, here's why this connects, family, when you look at the Gavin Newsom and his wife, and what you're seeing is the oldest story in the book, someone trying to cover up their problems by pointing at someone else instead of dealing with the truth. And instead of answering the questions about where the money coming from or came from and where it went, instead of being transparent about the charity and the finances, they hide behind claims of political persecution and fishing expeditions. And the life wisdom here for everybody, regardless of your faith, it's simple, right? The truth always catches up with you. You can deflect, you can blame, you can point fingers, and you can play the victim. But eventually the facts come out, and when they do, the cover up always makes things worse than the original issue. The strong thing, the righteous thing, the wise thing is to face the truth head on and admit what's wrong and deal with it, because mercy is available to people who tell the truth. But people who hide it and deflect and blame end up destroying themselves trying to protect a lie that was never worth protecting in the first place. So, family, let this be a lesson in your own life, okay? Whether it's your finances, your relationships, your work, your mistakes, always choose the truth over the cover up, because the cover up will cost you more than the mistake ever would. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, family, and spread that peace, love, and positivity, and let the love supersede the hate. On that note, family, peace.